everybody. Hope everybody's well. Making your dreams come true, making it do what it do, right? Focusing on the future, getting what you want, striving for the best, becoming the best version of yourself, all that type of stuff, right? So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, share, all that kind of good stuff. Listen, I want to talk about the situation that's going on with Kirk Franklin and the BET Awards and his um, rebuke. I'm going to call it his rebuke by Kevin Hart, and what that really means going forward, and also tie that into Tyler Perry and all that, the Tyler Perry scandal that's now kind of going on. So listen, let's start off with Kirk Franklin, right? So I'm not going to be playing this video. I got to, YouTube is bugging sometimes, So I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, I'm not going to play the video, but I will put up a screenshot. If you have not seen Kirk Franklin, his roasting by Kevin Hart on the BET Awards, you should probably go look at that for more context of what I'm saying here. Listen, this is not me advocating for church, for religion, any particular denomination or church or religion. I'm indicting all religions that claim to uphold some moral standards and then somehow, some way, fall off of that. There was another comedian, Eddie Griffin, who said, forget about who the messenger is. Did you get the message? In other words, what he was saying is that this idea of, following after these different types of leaders and cult leaders and cults of personalities and all this type of stuff, it'll set you up every time. And so here, Kirk Franklin, I don't know what this brother's doing. I actually praised him for his uh, ability to, deal with his lack of fatherhood, growing up without a father, all that type of stuff. And I really appreciated his coming to fruition with that. And I think he had a kind of like a 45-minute documentary about that on YouTube, and it was really touching. It was really touching. So again, I highly suggest people go watch that. However, I don't know what's going on with this dude. I don't know him personally. I don't follow the church world anywhere close to that. Particularly the black church world and what's going on musically, the gospel music world, entertainment. But there's some crazy stuff going on there. And when I say crazy, I'm talking about my own personal background and training that I grew up with. Background and training I grew up with, right? I grew up in a holiness church, a sanctified church, right? The Church of God in Christ that was all about, morality, ethics. Even if they weren't living it, at least they talked about it to a certain way. I'm not naive enough to think that everybody's living it all the time. But I'm talking about even the presentation, the dress code, right? The separation from the church and the world, right? I'm talking about all that type of stuff, right? All that seems to be gone and lost. And so you look at Kirk Franklin and his dancing on stage and his craziness that he had going on with that. You look at, recently I've run into some quote unquote church mothers, church ladies, church first ladies, or the pastor's wives, first ladies, who are, you can't tell them from quote unquote the world. They're wearing the same wigs, wearing the same fake eyelashes, just like, what is going on here? What are y'all doing? There was a time when they used to talk about come out from amongst the world and be ye separate, right? All this type of stuff, right? There's numerous scriptures in the Bible tells you not to dress a certain way and women not to be adorned in all these different fashions and stuff. It says it multiple times. So I don't know what's going on with that, right? So I'm not stumping for any of this. I'm not claiming to be religious. I'm not claiming to be a religion scholar. But I am saying that when my point in making this video is that if we're going to fix the community, in particular the black community, that we got to have some we got to have some standards. We got to have some standards. And when those standards are gone, about how you dress, walk, talk, act, move, exist, there was a time you're supposed to let your light shine. These people's lights are not shining. They are not the cities on the hill. These are not the modicums of of examples. Right? These people are not the examples that we need them to be in these days and times. We're dealing with a baby mama culture, a rise in STD rates, a rise in HIV rates, our single fatherhood, single motherhood issues that we got going on, all this type of stuff. And you got and these people who are constantly letting us down about how we should conduct ourselves in a moral and ethical manner. And this is the confrontation that I have. This is the problem that I want to confront. Let me put it like that: confrontation. This is the issue that I have, right? So listen, the two biggest areas of my life were the church, because that's where I grew up at, and it was the police department. Both of those had strict moral and ethical codes. They would fire. You could be fired for the police department for conduct unbecoming. That means even if you're off duty, and you're behaving a certain way, the police department had the right to analyze your conduct. I'm not going to be able to get over. The police department had the right to analyze your conduct, to investigate your conduct, and to fire you if they deemed you to be unworthy. And I suggest that that this same type of mentality and attitude needs to be taken up by the church. We got people doing all kind of crazy stuff. Again, the organization that I grew up in, with Church of God in Christ, there used to be a website. I don't know if it still exists or not, where you could go and look at all the different lawsuits that were going on that the Church of God in Christ had to pay out because of the abuse, because of the little kid abuse, because of the sleeping around, sexual harassment type of stuff. I don't know if that website's still up, but it just shows you, right? Somebody put up a website and documented all this type of stuff. Then that lets you know the scope and the breadth of the problem. And then it wasn't that long ago. I would say probably 15 years ago or so, roughly. Now maybe less than that, 10, 15 years ago, that they had put together this. Let's call it a mandate. Rule, mandate. Another word is escaping me. Well, let's just go with that. That before anybody could become an elder in the church, before anybody could become a pastor in the church or some type of leadership position, they had background checks performed, like criminal histories, sex offender lists, registries, all those different type of stuff, which I absolutely loved, even though I wasn't in the church at the time. I long since left the church, but I thought that was a great idea. I've seen people who they bend and break the rules for certain people. Back to Kirk Franklin. When you have people from quote unquote the world, Kevin Hart, the world, worldly, not saved, not in the church, not born again, whatever kind of stuff you talk about, when they are speaking out and making fun of you, you know that your light is problematic. You know that when the world is looking at you and they're making fun of the way that you would dance, dress, move, twerk for the Lord, there's a problem with that. A friend of mine, he's a funny dude. We were talking about this years ago. We were in our 20s, years ago, 30 years ago, we were talking about this. And he said, these guys these days, they'll be smoking a blunt with Jesus Saves on the side. Listen, when he said that, I couldn't stop laughing. But it was true. Look at the slow and gradual erosion that is going on. Again, just the other day, I saw a church pastor's wife dressed in the same way that you see, quote unquote, the city girl. Quote unquote, you see, what's the other term? A Keisha, dressed like a Keisha. Wild. Absolutely crazy. Can't tell the difference. So, this is not the only time I'm going to talk about this. Dr. B and I are going to start, we're in the beginning stages of creating another podcast. We're going to talk about the black culture, black church, and black justice and what that means. It's going to be, we're really working on that. We're looking forward to that. We're working on how often we're going to do it and all this kind of stuff. This is going to be one of our first messages. Because the erosion of the church, the erosion, let me put it like this, the erosion of our institutions, the schools that we don't no longer have, the church that is going on by the wayside, the our police, our interactions with the police, our interactions with the politicians, these institutions are jokes. Jokes. There was a time when you get people in these positions and you would expect them to understand our history and our culture and act accordingly. It don't work that way anymore. We have sold out. This Malcolm X talked about this. We wanted to be so inclined, so accepted into Americanism. And Americanism is taking advantage of other people. It is taking advantage of other people. That's what Americanism is. By hook or by crook, by force, manipulation, tactics, psychological warfare, get what you got. Continue the coffers to be filled with the money of poor people, with the resources of poor nations. That's what it is. So, then we get Tyler Perry here, who's obviously had some issues. Producer continues to be subjected to harsh critiques for his movies, and I've seen a lot of ladies just lashing out against him about his movies, and he don't like black women, and when are you going to stop with this trope and all this kind of stuff. We hear the message. Black women have had it rough. Okay, Tyler, you got anything else to say about that? And by the way, I can't even remember the name of it, 869 or whatever that movie was with Kerry Washington. I don't mean to be dismissive of it. The black female regiment who did what nobody else could do was a great, phenomenal movie. You really should try to, create a black spy movie, man. Something on a rival James Bond or Mission Impossible. And I'm not being funny about that. If he did that he did what he did with that movie, Kerry Washington, the six, I don't know what it was, 6'9". I'll put it up on the screen. You get some good stunt people, stunt action coordinators, working all, you could create I have no doubt in my mind he could create a phenomenal movie about that. But it's time that we hear that and stop with the downtrodden black woman trope. It's tired. However, he's also under fire. He's also under fire for, I guess now he's got some allegations about, sexual harassment, repeated sexual harassment. And listen, I understand. Let me put this delicately. I think that there is this initiation process, this accepted process of you got to pay to play. You want this job, you want this whatever. Until you become big time, you got to kind of do some things to get ahead. Pun intended. So, within that world. But again, as a Christian who's claiming to be, who has himself eroded, I talked about this before. I don't know if I ever made a podcast about it, but Tyler Perry used to have no swearing on the set. And then one day he makes a movie with, I can't even remember her name. But he makes a movie with this woman, and the F-bombs and H-bombs and all this kind of stuff. And now it's over the top sexual, because sexual performances, not his, but the actors. And then he gets critiques about how terrible they were. And then he goes over the top, mea culpa and all this stuff. Listen, I wasn't in the church at the time, but I actually appreciated this man holding the line. Now, why is this important? Why are you talking about this? Because when we take a look at our community, which is rife with baby mama drama, sharing men who don't want to be married, all the different problems and issues that we look at, I tie it to the lack of morality and the lack of an anchor to hold us in place and say, this is the mountain on the hill. And we have continued to give away, as I mentioned, ourselves, our souls in the pursuit of the American dream, Americanism. That's why I'm harping on this. That's why I'm harping on this. So I just want to drop this because I think it was and is important to talk about. I don't know if Tyler Perry did it. Could be another case of just, somebody who just wants some money, somebody just wants a bag, and it's, I wonder how they come up with $264 million. Where are you getting this number from? how are you just coming up with this number? Just, 264 million, not 265, not 260. Why not a cool 300 million? I don't know. But then again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. So anyway, I want to know your thoughts, your opinions. Are you agreeing with me that the loss of our institutions, the loss of the preachers, our politicians, our preachers, politicians, and police, our institutions, they let us down. And they let us down in such a crazy way that, it's really, we really got to take a look at, what we're doing, where we're going, how we're going to get there. And until we really set up and establish an institution, a body of people who actually adhere to what we want them to adhere to. Again, I appreciate Tyler Perry when he had that no swearing place, no swearing on his set. But then he just gave in. He gave in to the pressure of selling tickets and all that. He gave in to the pressure of that, and it's unfortunate. It's truly, truly unfortunate that this is what occurred. This is what goes on, and all that. So, let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Again, I don't know if he's guilty of it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Again, as being in this position and professing to be a Christian or professing to be any religion means you ought to be something. Just like I said about the police department, just because you're a police officer doesn't mean. Listen, I had to interview people. I was in IA. I was in internal affairs. I had to interview people because of my reports that I didn't write up. I had to recommend people. I recommended discipline, and ultimately they were fired. And then one dude self-deleted himself. I had to live with that because of my report that I wrote. Me. But you got to uphold standards, morals, ethics, and when you let people down, man, it just decreases the way that everyone looks at it. All these different scandals by the Catholic Church and all these different churches, the Mormon Church, Islam, all these different people, all these different, it doesn't matter what religion, that they're holding people to a standard. And that standard is let down. And the politicians, even this thing that's going on with what's going on in the Middle East right now, when these people violate international law, it creates a precedent that nobody's going to, they're violating international law, we're going to violate. Because if we're not in a rules-based order, if everybody's breaking the rules, I'm going to break the rules too. So if Kirk Franklin is dancing like that, and this dude is sexually harassing people, if he is, or at least he didn't protect himself, right? Everybody laughed at former VP Mike Pence. Everybody laughed at the Mike Pence rule, right? Oh man, this guy's got his wife in meetings with women. Now it's not so funny. Tyler Perry would have had assistants everywhere he'd gone to witness his interactions. You're a target. Can't be alone with people. And it's alleged that he's still struggling with his sexuality and all that. Listen, the church has created some serious issues. And this homosexuality, this LGBT issue is one they really got to confront. Whether it's the victims of abuse who have grown up and still dealing with that abuse in unhealthy ways or even in healthy ways. Just be who you are. And if you want to engage in this type of behavior, engage in it in an upfront way instead of secretive. And let the church figure out what they're going to do about that. I'm not making a pronouncement about that. I'm just saying that my point is when you do things undercover and secretly, that creates an issue and a problem that nobody can respect. That's all I'm saying. I gotta go. I got things to do, things to make, moves to make. Listen, I just want to drop this. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions about what you think about Tyler Perry. And how do you protect yourself? This is what men. This is one of the reasons for the manosphere, right? How do we protect ourselves in these situations, right? If you're working in a corporate office and maybe you're a good-looking dude, so everything that women want, you got a good job, you dress well, you smell nice, and all that kind of stuff, and women are hitting on you all the time, and you want to take advantage of that. I understand it, but how do you not take advantage of it? How do you not take advantage of it and protect yourself? You have to protect yourself at all times as a man. You have to protect yourself at all times as a man. And whatever your word is, I don't know if I dropped the video yet. I got a video coming out about that. Your word's got to be your word has to be your bond. For you biblical scholars out there, right? I think it's what Proverbs 22:1. I think, right? Your name, your good name, that means your reputation. Your reputation means everything. This is the struggle for all of humanity, of all of us. But it really stings when we see our black folks continually being taken down by things that I think we should know by now not to do. You can't tell me that Kirk Franklin grew up in this church and didn't know not to do this type of things. You can't tell me that nobody had a conversation with Tyler Perry and said, "Listen, brother." And if you don't have that, if you're too big for those types of conversations, if you were too big for those types of conversations because of your status, because of your financial income, if you're too big for that type of thing, you got a problem. You got a problem that's waiting to happen because people will take you down. People want dirt. People want dirt on you. I never forget a captain. I was a patrolman. This captain came. He's taught. We were sitting. We were in a room, what we called the front desk at the time. We were in the room, in this room. Myself, the captain, and a couple other officers and supervisors and stuff. We were all just kind of talking. And the captain looks at me and he says, "You don't have any vices, do you?" I think he called me Hunter, right? Because I call everybody the last name. "You don't have any vices, do you, Hunter?" I didn't. They don't like that. I didn't drink and smoke. I wasn't out running around. Not that I didn't want to. They want something on you. This is why, allegedly that they have these different rituals and whatever you got to go through and to make it in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff and put on this dress and this, that, and the other. As a man, put on this dress. Listen, I don't know, man. But let me know your thoughts and your opinions. Hit me in the comment section. Much love and peace.